So before I even read this chapter, I was thinking, where is Fujimoto going to take us? What spin or creative idea is he going to introduce to really throw us off course? We've had all of these theories and ideas from the previous week and the week before that, and he still managed to throw in some interesting things, right? The brand new horseman, who we still don't know the identity of, was something that I don't think anyone expected. It just seemed way too out there. And it changes the dynamic of the playing field quite a lot. The school is now kind of the center of very powerful and dangerous individuals. You have horsemen, you have Denji, you have the Justice Devil, you have Yoshida, most likely other assassins, you have that one swordswoman from the previous chapter who's probably still alive. There's a lot of individuals circling around this place, and my idea at this point is that they're all attracted to Chainsaw Man. More so on the devil side, of course, but I think it makes for an interesting narrative and even symbolic balance when you have all of these devils chasing and hunting Chainsaw Man, but then you have Denji who's chasing and hunting after human connection, love, appreciation, the seek or want of approval, and trying to allow people to find out his secret identity. So he's chasing that human connection and the devils are trying to chase his connection. When you wrap that within a school setting, it creates a very interesting balance. I'm not too sure how long it would last within here, but if we continue down this path and just watching Denji's life unfold as well as Asa and how they intertwine over time, I'd be more than happy with that. Of course, a lot of you are like, no, we want more fighting, we have to go find power, we have to get bigger and crazier, and of course you're entitled to those opinions, that's up to you to decide. But personally, I've really enjoyed the different change of pace that Fujimoto has gone for. And these chapters are prime examples of them feeling very closely similar to Chainsaw Man's original story, but entirely different at the same time. The pacing, the emotion behind it, the slow build up into this tension and anxiety, and while it's different in a lot of ways, it's masterful. With that said, we didn't actually get the curveball that we were thinking of, but we did get a pretty massive confrontation. Denji has arrived. His arrival is exactly the way you would think. Pretty much what I mentioned a couple of weeks back in saying that it's going to be very interesting if Denji arrives because it creates a problem if he kills Yuko. On both sides of Asa and Yoru. Asa loses a friend, Yoru loses a weapon. Obviously it's not that one-to-one, there's a lot of nuance within there and how that relationship builds over time, but still it's complicated. And Denji's just going to be doing what he figures he does best. He can't know about all this stuff with Asa and Yoru obviously, but slowly he's about to find out, and it seems like this chapter puts that confrontation right there because it does end with them face to face. Before we get there, however, we get kind of this oddly sincere side of Yuko, just a fraction. It opens up the chapter, and it's kind of saddening when you think about the situation. Even though it's very tragic and horrifying, the things that Yuko is trying to achieve is actually good. It's just her methods of doing it is extremely bad, and they obviously don't justify the mean. I found myself thinking about this and then catching the idea before it really escalated, because prior to her even having the Justice Devil, she was killing people. She killed her neighbor, and for some reason I always forget about that idea that she genuinely was psychotic before the Justice Devil, so feeling sad or sorry for her feels almost fickle because you take in the full picture and she's rather insane. I do appreciate the subtleness in her words though, because she does get quote-unquote resurrected. We don't know if she officially died. We don't know the transition between death and rebirth for devils and how long that would take. Anyway, we see the rampage that she goes on. She's a lot bigger now. She's grown massively. I'm not too sure how this is possible. Obviously, it's got something to do with the horseman that appeared in the prior chapter and resurrecting her in some way. Now, because people were saying, oh, this is obviously the Death Horseman because of Yuko was resurrected from the dead, for argument's sake, there's also the chance that Yuko wasn't particularly dead right then and there. Every horseman has this subset of abilities that allow them to resurrect people in certain ways. It's usually not directly from death, but for example, Makima has done it with a lot of people. We've seen Yoru do it at the beginning of the story, so there's nothing saying that another horseman could do that isn't in correlation to being death. Does that make sense? I guess what I'm trying to say is that I'm not convinced that it's death just because they brought Yuko back, because there's a lot of ways to circumnavigate that just based on different abilities. Plus, I find it interesting to scale the horsemen, so famine would technically be next, and even the fertility around famine and raising crops, for example, works perfectly with this idea of Yuko coming back and being bigger and stronger than ever, just like you would with any sort of crops. From here, Yuko is obviously causing mass destruction. She's obliterating the school. You have a couple of pretty low-level devil hunters rock up. They try to do some damage, not enough. They get obliterated. Yuko's just having a fun time. She's laughing, she's smiling, and she wants to obliterate bullying from schools in their entirety. She quickly catches the eye of Asa, however, who is knocked out, unconscious, just laying on the ground, and she's kind of panicking and all over the place. So I think it does create this sense of uniqueness with Yuko, is that she's not so warped, completely out of control within this devil form to where Asa is unrecognizable. I enjoy how it's dancing around how warped her perception of things are. Obviously she's infatuated with Asa, but also Chainsaw Man. So she wants to know who done this. And what do you know? There's a student behind the wall, the exact same place where the previous horseman came out from, who is suddenly not here, of course, but it just seems like an innocent person. Now originally I thought this was just a different person, and that maybe Asa seen this horseman, but they weren't physically actually there. More so because there is a ton of freckles on this woman compared to the horseman that we've seen who only had a couple. However, the more I look at this person, the more I think it's a similar situation to Asa and Yori's appearance, just a little bit more drastic, right? At least for now, I think it's identical as their situation, the body swapping. There's a couple of things that make me believe this. One, the character kind of facial structure and the hair is basically identical. The only difference between the hair is that the part is on the wrong side. You could argue semantics when it comes to like, oh, the angle, etc., of course, but the hairstyle itself is pretty much identical. I'd even go as far as say as the kind of rough outlining of their eyebrows and facial features is very close. I think this would be a great base, similar to Asa, where let's say famine or death, for example, takes over this body, and the indicators for us to let us know that they're in control is what is drawn. So the earrings, the eyes, maybe even how the hair parts a little bit, that is all indicators that the horseman is in control. Similar to how Yori has the scars and the eyes, like that, right? At this point in time, I think it's the same person, because I don't think a horseman would act like this, being genuinely scared and pleading to Yuko that it wasn't her. But if it's just the human side of the horseman, technically she's telling the truth. And when you kind of reroute that back to the emphasis that Yuko puts on the word "you did this," makes me think it's the same situation as Asa and Yori's relationship. To cut this short and to interrupt it completely, Denji obviously appears, and I love his introduction. I've been waiting for this. I was a little bit unsure if it would happen when the horseman pulled up, but he's finally here. And again, it causes a bit of conflict because if he kills Yuko, obviously that's a problem for both Asa and Yoru. But now that we have this other horseman, it adds a little bit of relief. This horseman may actually defend Denji or Chainsaw Man specifically, especially if they're watching this situation happen right now. Denji's smug about the whole thing, which I love. He plays it very coy, saying that, oh, he doesn't want to blow his cover and he doesn't want to do this, but if someone's in danger, he has to do it. He's a superhero. He can't stand idly by if there's an emergency. Quite literally leaves him no choice. These two start to fight. We get some very beautiful panels and really being showboaty about it. Yuko has a fangirl moment. Obviously, she's obsessed with Chainsaw Man. Denji doesn't care. He's having fun with it. He's playing the superhero role, and within this instance, it's a really massive departure to what we've seen him prior. He's always had these goofy comedic moments within fights a lot of the time, depending on the situation. This is just so much more lively to his intention. Almost like it's coming straight out of like a superhero comic book. This over-the-top comedic relief, which is actually kind of refreshing for him, given the things that he's trying to do. Yuko thinks that she can read his mind. Like that would be the best way to solve this whole situation, right? Wrong. Turns out he's not thinking at all, and she's flabbergasted by this. The only thing that he's thinking about within all of this action, dodging all of these attacks and not even getting hit, is how to expose his secret identity while making it seem natural. Now this is impressive, if you ask me. He's fighting instinctively. He's moving his body at a rhythm that even a mind reader can't even comprehend. Now fun fact, you've seen this before, at least different variations of it. When he's in the full Chainsaw Man Pochita armor form, whatever you want to call it, he is driven entirely by instinct. Especially when you watch him fight, the things that he does. And I guess a great example of that is the situation with Kobeni when he's eating food. And then it's really clarified in his fighting style. The way he approaches the different hybrids, how he saves himself from a lot of different altercations, but then it's reinforced right at the end in the second altercation of the story with Denji figuring out how to defeat Makima. I think they're meant to be polar opposites in a way, and this fight now really clarifies his instinctual nature to fight, and in simple terms allow the impulse of the moment to drive him forward. Because when he does start to think, it clouds his judgment, it clouds his mind, and he has a lot of things to think about that is very traumatizing. Which, if you want to blow it up even further, he's not going to have a good trauma response. He's not going to have a way to digest all of this information properly and really heal it naturally in a way that aids him mentally, emotionally, even physically. So it makes sense for someone with his past and the difficulties that he's faced that the handling of his trauma obviously isn't the best, and that he's going to bottle it and try and throw that away completely and then pile on top of it whatever he can. Probably a little bit too blown up just from this simple page, but hopefully Hopefully you see what I'm going for here. But to end the chapter off, we have Asa waking up. But before she can even really comprehend the situation and even see Denji, her body gets taken over. And Yoru and Chainsaw Man are face to face, basically ready to fight. I'm very excited to see where Fujimoto goes with this, because there's a lot of different things. Could try and have a tussle, Denji could reveal himself to Yoru but not Asa because she didn't see the thing unfold. It could just be a very weird situation. Like, this seems like a prime opportunity for him to reveal himself, but obviously he doesn't want to do that to Yoru. Does he even recognize that this is Yoru? Will his body have some sort of instinct to react to Yoru because of their history with each other and that they've fought before? Who knows? Very straightforward chapter, but I absolutely love it. I'm excited for next week because we are getting another chapter. Let me know your thoughts right now. Thank you.